Welcome to Pleasurology Island. I'm Free Thought Steve, the lone pleasurologist. Thanks for stopping by. Last time I was talking about Wilhelm Reich, the Austrian psychoanalyst, who was basically the father of pleasurology, the father of the idea of orgasm expansion, and how we can take Wilhelm Reich's theory as a starting point and then add to it what we now know about neuroscience so that we can provide a more accurate picture of what Wilhelm Reich meant when he said that character armoring or emotional armoring in the person, which included physical tensions, muscular body armor, as well as emotional armor of certain emotional habits, emotional attitudes that had become habits for people. That was this armoring of the personality, Reich felt, was the impediment, the block, the challenge that had to be overcome in order for a person to experience orgasm expansion. Remember, Reich's idea was that a powerful enough orgasm to discharge all of the sexual drive energy that has built up in us is an essential thing. A powerful enough orgasm is an essential thing for emotional health as well as physical health. That orgasm is the means by which we satisfy our natural biological sex drive. And Reich found that many of his patients, even though they were having orgasms, their orgasms were too constricted and not powerful enough and not pleasurable enough to thoroughly satisfy their sex drive. And so after they'd had an orgasm, they wouldn't feel really sexually fulfilled and sexually satisfied and content and happy with their lives. And Reich felt that good orgasms were an important component of happiness in life. And he felt that in order for people to have more powerful orgasms, they needed to somehow let go of the emotional armoring that had been built up in them by their sex-negative authoritarian upbringing. Reich contrasted the sex-negative authoritarian upbringing of people in Europe and America, basically in all the cultures that had Christianity as their fundamental worldview. And of course, that's true of other cultures besides Christianity. Many cultures have a very sexually restrictive worldview. And they're also authoritarian cultures, and usually patriarchal cultures, meaning that the father of the family or the grandfather, the oldest male in the family, has power over all the other members of the family, and they have to obey him. And this is where the biblical commandment, honor thy father and thy mother, it enshrines this idea, honor thy father and mother, especially thy father. Do what your father says. Obey your father in the same way that you obey Yahweh, the imaginary God that the Jews and Christians worshipped. Judaism and Christianity are both authoritarian worldviews where God is the ultimate authority to be obeyed, and then the king of the country represents God, and the father of the family represents God. And therefore, everybody below them has to obey the king and the father of the family without questions and accept the orders that come down from on high. So this is an authoritarian type of society where there is what we call a hierarchy of power. Some people are power up and other people are power down. Everybody who's below the person who's on top is power down, in reference to that person on top. But everybody who's below the person in the middle is power down in reference to that person in the middle. So everybody's got a certain amount of power that they're exerting over the people down below, until you get down to children who have no power at all. They're under the power of their parents, under their teachers, ministers, policemen, politicians, and so forth. And so Wilhelm Reich, this Austrian psychoanalyst, Wilhelm, Wilhelm Reich, R-E-I-C-H, he was anti-authoritarian and very much egalitarian. That's why he was a socialist, because he believed that all human beings are equal and that we all have an equal right to the good things in life, and that the good things in life shouldn't be just for the privileged few, and everyone else should work to serve the privileged few. Society should be organized so that all of us, who are all equal human beings, all get our needs met. And not just our physical needs, but our emotional needs. In fact, ultimately, I think a healthy society, I personally think I'm a utopian socialist. I believe a socialist believes that society should be organized for the benefit of the entire populace, not just for a few people, but that everyone should benefit from the way that society is organized. And a utopian socialist says that we need to go beyond economic equality. Everybody needs to have economic security so that their economic needs are met. They have a place to stay. They have a roof over their heads. They have a guaranteed supply of food and high-speed internet access and the other basic necessities of life. That those economic necessities are guaranteed to everybody. But even more important than that, if we truly want to be happy, and if life is about being happy, then society should be organized not just to produce economic goods. Society should be organized first and foremost so that we get our emotional needs met. Because it's having our emotional needs met that makes us emotionally rich and makes us truly happy. People can have lots and lots of money, fame, and fortune, and if they're not getting their emotional needs met, they're going to just be unhappy people with a lot of money. And they just live reckless and irresponsible lives, and often self-destructive lives, because they're not emotionally healthy enough, and they don't have their emotional needs met. And so that's what pleasurology can do for us. Pleasurology doesn't take a lot of money. If you have a good supply of cannabis, that's your major, outlay or expense. And then it takes time. It takes free time that we can use as we ourselves decide to use it. And we can decide to use that to make ourselves more emotionally healthy, to undo this character armoring that Wilhelm Reich was talking about. Dissolve that armoring, become emotionally healthy people, and then interact with other people in an emotionally healthy way so that we get our emotional needs met. What are our emotional needs? We need nurturing affection. We need love from other people. We need to give love to other people. And that's the one thing that our culture is most frightened of. The only place we allow love to be exchanged among people is in a one-on-one pair bond relationship, a romantic relationship, or between parents and children. But among the rest of us, and say we're not part of a family, we're not part of a pair bond relationship even right now, should we be denied the nurturing affection and love that is what makes us feel safe and cherished and part of a belonging to a community of friends who feel that nurturing affection for us? And that was one of the things that the hippie culture, the first wave psychedelic culture, counterculture of the 60s and 70s, was trying to create, and we did create that briefly in certain times and places, where groups of people could come together and be affectionate with each other and not be embarrassed about that, and just feel a glow of general love for each other. And I feel that as pleasurologists, there's personal pleasurology, and then there's also interpersonal, social pleasurology with other people. And both of these are important. And that's why I think it is important for people who want to create a pleasurological culture, a subculture of pleasurology, to make our lives emotionally rich. What we need to do is form small groups of people who are similarly dedicated to sharing, nurturing affection in a tender way, in a way that we're not afraid of. But we don't have to be afraid that it's going to become something sexual. That's the fear that anti-sexual society puts in us towards nurturing affection, is that nurturing affection will somehow turn into a sexual encounter that we don't want. So we need, as pleasurologists, we need to make a distinction. Both things are good. Sexual pleasure is wonderful, but it doesn't mean we're going to share sexual pleasure with everybody that we meet necessarily. We should be able to share tender affection, nurturing affection with each other, and realize that is just what it is. It's not something sexual, but it's just affection. It's just love. It's caring. It's kindness. Because if we have that in our lives, then we are emotionally rich, and we can be much richer. Our lives can be much richer than somebody with lots of money who doesn't have nurturing affection in their life. So those of us who don't have a lot of money and don't ever expect to be rich can be content with our lives as they are if we form tender nests. This is my nickname for them, tender nests. The nest is a small group of people. That name comes from Stranger in a Strange Land, a book by Robert Heinlein, where the people in the more evolved culture formed little nests of brothers and sisters, water brothers and sisters. They had a ceremony of sharing water, and that was a form of bonding to each other, saying, I trust you and you trust me. We're not going to do anything to hurt each other. So we can trust each other to be affectionate with each other and to be loving with each other. So a tender nest would be, and I suggest that we all try a little tender nest. Try a little tender nest. Form a small group of people that you can trust, who are sincerely interested in growing as human beings and in fulfilling each other's nurturing affection needs and respecting each other in all ways so that nobody exploits anyone else in a tender nest. Anyone who turns out to be an exploiter would be expelled from a tender nest. A tender nest, it's a great privilege to belong to a tender nest, and that privilege can only be maintained by treating the other members of the tender nest with complete respect, complete equality, and sharing affection in a giving and gentle way. Because human nature has great extremes in it. Human nature can be horribly cruel and violent and uncaring toward other people. Or human nature can be extremely loving and kind. And that's how we all want to be. If nobody is scaring us, if nobody is threatening us, if we can trust the people that we're with, we naturally want to be loving and caring with each other. And so I think an important part of a pleasurology culture will be forming tender nests of friends who share sandwich hugs, who share massage, can be clothes on massage. One person can lie down and a couple of other people can massage them. Several other people can massage them, and then they all take turns getting massaged, but it's just caressing massage. It's nurturing massage. It's helping people just feel better physically and emotionally at the same time. And a sandwich hug, where one person's in the middle and one person's hugging them from behind, another one from in front, and feeling completely enclosed in a womb of human nurturing affection, physical nurturing affection. That is an absolutely wonderful experience. And it doesn't cost anything to have a sandwich hug. And yet it's worth $1 million in terms of how good it makes you feel. It makes you feel like $1 million, but it doesn't cost anything. So this is what I think we should be aiming for. But in order to have a tenderness of emotionally healthy people, each of us needs to do personal pleasurology first and work on our own emotional health first, or at the same time that we're doing this with a tenderness, because a tenderness is good for other things besides just nurturing affection. We want to be able to share our inner feelings, share our memories, share our emotions, share our worries, share our concerns with someone else. And so we can be co-counselors. People within a tenderness can counsel each other. Because in order to be a good counselor for somebody else, it doesn't take a whole lot of training in psychology and all the rest of that. What it takes is two things. It takes being able to listen to the other person without interrupting them, just letting them tell you whatever they want to tell you. And then secondly, then accepting whatever they tell you without making any judgments about it, and continuing to give the person positive regard, meaning approval, saying, I love you, I care about you, I know you're just another human being like me with a tender heart that just wants to be loved. And we've all made mistakes in our lives because we're blundering through life in a crazy society that doesn't know anything about psychology really and doesn't care much about human needs. And so we're all trying to get our human needs met one way or another, but we're all making mistakes in our lives. And we're blundering along, doing the best we can, but we're all imperfect. But we need to tell other people sometimes about the things that the fiascos in our life, or the things that have happened to us that we didn't deserve, the painful things. We need to be able to share with someone else all the stuff that we've been keeping bottled up inside. So an important function of the tenderness would be to find a co-counselor, someone within that tenderness that you can talk to and they can talk back, and you can take turns being the one who shares, what the inner stuff that needs to be shared, and the person who listens and gives positive regard back and just continues to love the person. And so, whatever you tell me is okay. I'm not going to judge you or reject you as a person for what you've told me. And we may tell people something that we're very sorry that we've done. We're sorry that we've done that. And as long as we express our sorrow for it, it may be a terrible thing, but we've done it. We can't undo it. And we wish we could undo it, but we can't. But we're sorry that we did it. And we just need to express that to someone who hears that and says, okay, I understand. It's good that you recognize that you made a mistake there. You did something that you shouldn't have done there, and that you're sorry about it. And you recognize that, and you will try not to do that thing again, because it's only human to make mistakes. But to be an intelligent human is to learn from our mistakes and try to avoid repeating them, which isn't always easy, because sometimes we're driven by our emotional brain to do things that end up hurting other people, and particularly in love relationships and sexual relationships. This is especially true. So we need to be aware of our own drives and our own feelings and find ways to satisfy our drives without hurting other people. And that's oftentimes not easy to do. It's a very complicated topic, though, and I don't want to get into that now. I want to get back to Wilhelm Reich and character armor. And as I said, he felt that character armor was emotional attitudes that you can read on a person's face, that you can hear in the tone of their voice, that you can see in their posture, in their body posture. Is this an angry person? Is this a frightened person? Is this someone who is a frightened person but is pretending not to be frightened by being aggressive or being overly confident? But that confidence is bullshit. What Reich believed was that our outer layer of personality, most of us, the outer layer of our personality is a cover-up for our real feelings, our deeper feelings. And we pretend oftentimes to have the opposite feeling from the way we really feel, because we're trying to present a personality to the world that will not get us attacked, that will protect us from being attacked. This is a defensive personality. I'm on the defensive, and even it doesn't always have to look like you're angry or you're frightened to be a defensive personality. It can be an overlay of that, where I pretend I'm not frightened. I pretend I'm not scared. I'm not angry. I pretend to be just the smoothest, nicest guy in the world. But it's because inside, I'm afraid you're going to try and take advantage of me, and I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to make sure I'm in control of the situation, and I'm manipulating the situation by being really cool and knowing exactly what I'm doing and how to work things very smoothly so that I get what I want in the end. Got to watch out for the smooth operators like that. They can be a smooth operator in many fields. It can be a smooth operator in love. They know how to flatter you, make you feel like you're the one that I just can't live without, and you're just so magnificent. You just have to let me love you because I just have such a desire for you, and I can't live without you. And this can be a form of manipulation. So also, people may be actually very filled with anger inside, but on the outside, they're very polite and always making sure never to upset anyone. Always be, just exactly what you want me to be, etc. But deep down underneath, they're filled with anger, and they may take advantage of you if they can. And they need to get that anger out somehow. So part of Reichian therapy is to try and get rid of the bullshit outer layers of our personality that are just hiding the true feelings underneath. And the true feelings underneath may be very turbulent feelings of anger and fear and sadness and betrayal and whatever, anger because we've been raised by parents who were unpredictable. They might love us at one moment, then they might get drunk and beat us up at another moment or something like that, lose their temper unpredictably and so forth. And so, we've got that fear that makes us protect ourselves with an outer layer of toughness or aggression or I don't care. You can do anything you want to me. I don't care. You can't hurt me. This is a defendant personality, and it comes from being raised in authoritarian situations where the authorities will punish us if we don't do what they want. And so we're in a position of being powered down. They're power up, we're powered down, and we resent that fact because we don't want to be powered down. No human being wants to be powered down in relationship to anyone else. We all want to feel like we have complete power over ourselves. We don't want anybody else pushing us around. And if we are egalitarians, that means that we recognize that everybody else has that same feeling too. Nobody wants to be pushed around. And so, as an egalitarian, we say, I will respect you if you respect me. You know, I won't be aggressive toward you. I'll be kind to you and friendly toward you, as long as you respect me. But because we haven't been raised in egalitarian families, most of us, we've been raised in an authoritarian society. Our teachers are authorities over us. They can punish us. Police can punish us. Ministers can make us feel ashamed and like they're holy and we're not. So we learn to develop these defenses against other people. And this is the primary sickness of human beings, that we are forced by our environment to learn to be defensive and to put up a shell against other people, just to protect ourselves. And that was one of the things that the hippies, the first wave psychedelic counterculture back in the 1960s and 70s, we were recognizing the existence of this defensiveness between people and saying, no, there's got to be a better way to live. There's got to be a way to live where we can trust each other so that we can relax around each other and just be ourselves and not have to worry that, this person's going to try and get something from me or hurt me or anything like that, but we can trust each other. And and we can therefore love each other and recognize what beautiful human beings we are inside, emotionally. What a person looks like is not important. What's important is what is inside them. What kind of person are they? Are they a good-hearted person? And can they allow their good-heartedness to come out and be shared with the people around us? This is a healthy way of relating to each other. And this is what the psychedelics allowed us to glimpse this form of relating, because the psychedelics, for many of us, would come into us and would take our emotional brain. Remember our emotional brain? Here's the brain. Here's the brain from the side and from the back. Here's the brain from in front. Open it up. Inside the colored areas, those are the emotional brain areas. The psychedelics come to our emotional brain areas and they temporarily dissolve this character armor, this defensive personality. And that's why many people, when the LSD was first becoming popular, many people reported an experience of taking LSD and then having a feeling of kind of panic of, oh no, I'm going to die if I let myself go with this experience. There was this fear of death thing that came at the beginning of an LSD trip for many people. I didn't ever experience that, but many people did. And what I think that is a fear of relaxing away these emotional defenses against other people, of letting go of our fear, letting go of our anger, letting go of our untrusting attitude. And instead, because that's what people would say, yes, if you can get beyond that, just trust the experience, just let go with the LSD experience, and you won't have any trouble. But people felt like they were going to die because the LSD was trying to relax all their muscles, trying to relax all of their emotions and dissolve all of those defenses. And if you were able to let that happen, and for me it happened without any fear of death experience, I just always, when I was on LSD, automatically got into a very trusting and calm mood, and didn't have to worry about letting my armor go. It just dissolved sort of imperceptibly for me. And then I was in this trusting, open, honest place. And I just wanted to stay there. I felt perfectly safe. I didn't feel like anybody was threatening me. And I wanted to stay there. So LSD gave us a glimpse of that kind of wonderful possibility of relating to other people in a trusting and undefended way. But then when the LSD wore off, our old emotional habits came back. The character armor reformed itself around us. And the big question was, in this counterculture, was how can we stay in that undefended state? How can we stay in that emotionally healthy character without having to be on LSD all the time? And so that's what pleasurology can allow us to do. We didn't have pleasurology. We didn't have a coherent program of pleasurology in the first wave of the psychedelic counterculture in the 60s and 70s. We were looking for it. We were looking at all kinds of different psychological ways of improving ourselves. And people were trying everything they could, and some of them worked and some of them didn't, but nobody had a coherent program of how to become an emotionally healthy person. And that's what pleasurology can do, this comprehensive pleasurology program that I'm wanting to introduce you to. It can permanently change how our emotional brain operates. And this was the key part of the puzzle that Wilhelm Reich didn't have access to. Reich did not have the neuroscience to tell him that, yes, there is a part of the brain, the emotional brain, that is generating the character armor. And what has to change in order to dissolve the character armor is change how our emotional brain functions. Reich had simply this model of repressed emotions that needed to be released. And he felt that if we could just release the emotions that we have not yet expressed, that are inside us, then our emotional brain will be healthy. And that's a very important part of remodeling, reconditioning our emotional brain, overhauling our emotional brain so that it will work in a better way, so that we can get rid of these habits of anxiety, anger, tension that are creating these chronic organismic tensions throughout our body. So it's a learning model. Catharsis is part of learning to operate our emotional brain better. But catharsis isn't the only part. It's one of about 4 different components. There's relaxing our muscles. There's using cannabis along with the relaxed muscles to facilitate catharsis and getting out all the emotions that have been held in. And then after catharsis, there's relaxing emotionally and learning to observe our own consciousness, learning to observe our feelings as they arise, so that as our emotions arise, we can express them in some way. We can express the emotional energy that is generated by the emotional brain, so that our emotional energy stays at more or less the same level. The emotional brain will release a surge of emotional energy in response to some situation. And then when that surge of energy arises, we will notice that in consciousness, and we'll know how to breathe it away, sigh it away. We'll notice how to move a little bit and then relax our muscles or if it's a really strong surge of emotion that makes us want to cry, we can let ourselves cry. If we're really, really angry and we're in a therapeutic situation where we're not going to hurt anybody, we can let our anger out. We can express our anger. Or if we are with somebody else and we get angry, we can express it with a sigh and a grunt or whatever, and maybe say something, but not be destructive in the way that we do it, but that we can allow our emotions to flow through our system, instead of when the emotional brain generates emotional energy, containing it and hiding it from the world, somehow let it out. We can breathe it away, we can sigh it away. You can let out a lot of emotional energy and then let your emotional energy come back down to a relaxed place, because we've learned how to practice emotional and mental relaxation. All of these are components of the complete pleasurology program, and they're all necessary components. But I'll talk more about that next time, and try and explain a little bit more in detail some of the techniques that we can use to recondition, to transform, to overhaul our emotional brain so that it works in a calmer way, and that helps us be undefended with other people, helps us have trusting relationships with other people, helps us listen to them and really hear what they have to say, helps us see the emotions that they are feeling, as well as express the emotions we are feeling, because it's a two-way street. And all of this is part of the comprehensive pleasurology program. Thank you very much for listening. Talk to you again soon.